Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey, and in this video we're continuing our Resource Gatherer AI. We're going to use our resources in some simple building construction. Let's begin. So here's our scene. I have the two gatherers in here. I can select either one of them and I can give them orders. I can tell this one to go mine some gold and this one to go chop some wood. And they go, they gather, the node gets depleted as you can see, and then they go for another one. After some time, the node gets replenished and they can mine it again. Okay, great. So now that we have this basic ecosystem working, let's use our resources to actually build something. We're going to construct a tower object, and let's say it takes 10 wood and 5 gold. So for starters, let's go into our game handler, and in here we're going to construct the tower on the right mouse button. So let's go on the update, make a private void update, and in here if input get mouse button down, and in here we want to test on the right mouse button, so that's mouse button 1. If we have it, then it's in here that we want to construct a tower. So to test our logic, let's use the cmdebug class, which is part of the CodeMonkey utilities that you can grab from unitycodemonkey.com. Let's go there and do a text pop-up on the mouse just to make sure that this is triggering. So construct tower and let's test. Right, here I am, hit the right mouse button, and yep, we are capturing the right mouse button. Okay. Now in here, let's test if we have enough resources. So in order to do that, we are going to go if game resources, and in that class, we have the function get resource amount. Then we take the resource type, which in this case, let's first test for wood, and let's test if the wood amount, if it is bigger than 10, and again, get resource amount of our gold, and we're going to make sure that it is above 5. So if in here, then we do have resources, else not enough resources. So in here, do a cmdebug. All right, so we are testing if we have 10 wood and 5 gold. So let's see. Okay, so just like that, we got 0, 0. So if I click, no resources. Okay, so let's grab some gold and some wood. Okay, we have 12 gold, 12 wood, and if I right click, yep, we now have resource. Okay, great. So in here, if we do have resource, then we're going to spawn a tower. If not, then we're not going to spawn. Before we do spawn the tower, we need to remove those resources from the game resource. So go game resources, and in here we need a function to remove resource amount, and we're going to remove game resources resource type, remove wood, let's say 10, and remove 5 of gold. So let's go into that class and make this function. So in here, make a public static void, remove resource amount, and here we're going to take a resource type and also an amount. And in here, simply do the same thing that we did in here and also fire the event. Instead of increasing, we decrease. Okay, great. So we can now remove resources from this class. All right, so let's test again, make sure the resources are being removed. Okay, here I am, no resources, tell them to gather, there they go. All right, we have enough, now let's try, and poof, has the resources, and as you can see, they were removed. Okay, great. So the logic for testing our resource amount and removing them is working perfectly. Right, now let's visually spawn the tower. In order to keep our code clean, let's first create a tower class. So let's create a new C# script, and let's name it tower. Now in here, we're going to make this a simple class, so remove mono behavior and these functions. And first of all, let's make a static function to try to spend the resources. So make a public static bool, try spend resources cost. And in here, we're going to do the test for the resource cost, which we used in here. So copy this code and drop it in here. So this class is the one that is responsible for testing how much a tower costs and removing that cost. So in here, if we do have resources, then we return a true. If not, then we return a false. Okay, so now back in our game handler, instead of using this, we're going to do if tower dot try spend the resources cost. If that one returns true, then we have spent the resources. So in here, let's construct a tower. So we're going to make a tower and make a create function. So let's make our public static create function. So public static, it will return a tower object, and let's call it create. Now in here, we're going to receive a vector3 for the position to spawn the tower, and we're also going to receive a transform for the tower prefab. Okay, now in here, let's instantiate that prefab. Instantiate it into the position and quaternion.identity. Then we're going to create a tower object and make a new tower and give it the tower transform. And then we're going to return that. And down here, let's make our constructor for the tower, which will receive a transform for the tower transform. All right, so we're doing this just to keep our code nice and clean. So we call this function from the outside, and this function returns a fully constructed tower object. So let's go into our game handler. So let's go up here and add another serialized field for our tower prefab. Okay, that's what we're going to send to instantiate. And for the position, let's go into the utils class and get the mouse world position. Okay, so this is the code for now. Now let's make that prefab. So in here, I have various sprites for the tower in the various stages of construction. So in here, let's create an empty game object. We're going to get a sprite renderer. And let's just give it the full tower just for now. Okay, so that's all we need for the prefab. So let's go up here, create a new prefab. Let's call it PF tower. We're going to drag this in there. Okay, so let's drag the prefab in here and let's test. Now, in order to make testing easier, let's go into the game resources. And in here, when we initialize, instead of starting with 0, let's start with 999. This is just so testing is easier, so we don't have to wait for our gatherers to gather the resources. So let's go. All right, I have 999, and if I right click, yep, there you go. The tower has been spawned and the cost went down. Okay, great. Now let's handle the tower construction. So back in our tower script, in here, let's spawn it in construction and do a simple construction tick timer. So first, let's grab a reference to the sprite renderer, and we're going to grab it based on the tower transform.getComponent type sprite render. So now first, let's set the sprite. We start with the first construction sprite, and now we're going to do a simple construction tick timer. If you've seen the video on the time tick system, this would be a great place to use it. But for now, let's do the logic in a very simple way. So in here, let's simply make a private int for the construction tick and a private int for the construction tick max. So down here, let's start off the construction tick at 0 and set the construction tick max to be, let's say, 10. Now let's make a function, a private void increase construction tick. And in here, if the construction tick, if it is under construction tick max, then we're going to increase it. In here, let us also swap the sprite. So do a switch on our construction tick. We have a total of 4 sprites. So in here, let's first put on 3. Okay, so in here, we are very simply changing the construction based on the tick. If you wanted this to be applicable to more than just this tick max, you would do some simple calculation to get a normalized value. But in this case, let's just leave it like this to keep it nice and simple. So this function is increasing our construction ticks and updating the sprite. Let us also make a private bool for testing if is constructing. And it will simply return if the construction tick, if it is under construction tick max. And this is what we're going to use up here to keep our code very nice and descriptive. And now up here, let us actually trigger this function. So in order to do that, we're going to use the function periodic. We're going to use it to trigger the increase construction tick, and we're going to increase it every, let's say, second. So every second, this function will be triggered. This function will test if it is constructing. If so, it will increase the tick and update the sprite. So let's see if all that is working. Okay, so here I am. I right click, there's the tower, and it is currently in construction. As you see the sprite, and yep, now it's fully built. Okay, great. So we have the construction timer being activated and increasing, and the tower is constructing. Okay, now let's add a construction bar. So in here, we're going to use the world bar, which again is on the CodeMonk utilities, to create a construction bar. Going to create a new one. Let's place it as a child of this transform and put it slightly under. We're going to store that construction bar as a member variable so that we can go down here, and after we increase the construction tick, let's actually update it. So in order to do that, we do need to calculate a normalized value. So let's do a float construction normalized, which will be the construction tick multiplied by 1f in order to convert it into a float, and then divide by the construction tick max. So this is the normalized value that we're going to do. Use set size and set the size of our construction bar. Okay, so let's test. Here I am, and if I right click, yep, there's the tower and there's the bar. As you can see, it is increasing on every tick, and yep, it's full, it's completed. Okay, great. So we got the tower construction fully working. Now let's actually do something when the tower is fully constructed. For example, let's spawn another gatherer. So in order to do that, let's make a prefab, a new prefab, and let's make it the PF gatherer unit. And we're going to drag this in here. So now let's go into the game handler and add another serialized field for the gatherer unit prefab. Now in order to spawn our gatherer, we're going to pass in a function on our tower create. So in here, when we create, let's also pass in an action, which we have to go up here and do using system. Now this action will actually do something when the tower is fully constructed. So in here, let's call it on tower constructed action. And we're going to pass it onto our constructor and receive it down here. Okay. This is our action. Let's store it internally. Okay, so now down here, if construction tick, if it is equal to the construction tick max, then the tower is fully constructed. So in here, let's also hide our bar. So hide this construction bar, and we're going to trigger this action. So the tower doesn't care what happens when it's constructed, it just receives an action and triggers it. So now let's go back into our game handler. So in here, let's make a private void spawn gatherer unit, and we're going to receive a vector3 for the position. And what we're going to do is instantiate our gatherer unit prefab, spawn it on the position, pattern.identity, okay. And that's all we need to do to spawn a new gatherer. So in here, let's give it the action that will trigger on construction, and the action that you will execute will be spawn a gatherer unit on this position. So in here, let's make a vector3 for the tower spawn position, which will be this. Use that in here. And down here, let's spawn a gatherer unit in that, and let's put it a bit under. So new vector3, let's say on 0, -2. Okay, so on right click, we try to spend the resources. If we can't spend the resources necessary to construct the tower, then we actually construct the tower. We get the tower spawn position based on the mouse position. We create a tower using the tower prefab. When the tower is fully constructed, it will fire this action, and this action will spawn a new gatherer on the spawn position +-2, so a bit under the tower, and this will simply instantiate the gatherer prefab. So let's see if all of that is working exactly as intended. Okay, so here I am, the resources are back on 0, so let's grab this one, tell him to gather some gold, this one gather some wood, and if I right click, you can see nothing happens because we do not have enough resources. So let's see them grab, and then we can test. So gold 3, wood 3, let's wait until we have 10 wood and 5 gold. So you can see nothing happens, so let's wait. Okay, we now have enough, so if I right click, yep, there's the tower, there's the construction bar, it's going up, the sprite is updating, and yep, the tower is fully constructed, the bar disappeared, and we now have a new gatherer. And I can select him and tell him, go mine this. And there he goes, and once I've got enough right now, so let's go, spawn another one, there he goes, they are mining, and construct, and yep, there's another one. And again, tell him to mine, and when I got enough, I can spawn another. Okay, great. So there you have it. We constructed a building using the resources that our gatherers picked up. The tower has a simple construction timer, and when completed, it spawned another gatherer that we can use to mine more resources. So in this series, we covered everything regarding a simple resource gatherer. He can look for resource nodes independently or be told where to go. The system supports multiple resource types, and the nodes have a limited amount of resources. They also replenish that resource amount after some time. We then add the ability to construct a building using those resources and spawn another gatherer when the building is completed. I hope you enjoyed this series and learned something useful from it. Now go ahead and apply it to your own games. As always, you can download the project files and utilities from unitycodemonkey.com. If you have any questions, post them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Subscribe for more videos and I'll see you next time.